Hello, everybody. We got something for you tonight. That's for certain. We are going to talk about why BDSM contracts are so horrible, and we're going to give you an alternative called the kinky. Here it comes up, the kinky treaties. So we're going to be talking about it. Welcome to the program this evening. I'm pretty excited to get to it. We have 1 minute till we're going to go live on TikTok. You guys have any questions, comments, concerns? That's what the comments are. The comment section is. We are going to be not only live here on YouTube, but we're going live on TikTok in just a few seconds. I hate when it doesn't show my thing right in front where it's supposed to. So we can go live now. So we're going to go ahead and do that. I set up the whole side there and it's not even going to show. Say hi to Scaled Live Rewards. So that's something for another time. There we go. Ooh, that'll get it pretty high. All right, if that all stays, we're good to go. So away we go. Hold on, I just want to change the fan. It's actually got me a little chilly. We will have an after show on this particular platform. So when I'm saying goodbye to TikTok, don't worry, I'm not going anywhere from you guys. You'll have me till just about 8 o'clock. So let's go live on TikTok. Hello, TikTok. We got something for you tonight. We're going to be here live, both on YouTube and on the talk of the town, the TikTok. And I might be steaming hot today because we're going to be talking about a topic that really makes me angry: contracts. Now, for those who don't know about the history of the BDSM contract, the BDSM contract was basically used as a tool of manipulation. It started out as a way to make someone feel as though they literally were signing away their rights as a human being. A BDSM contract is not that new. From my research, the late 70s, maybe early 80s is when the BDSM contracts were first noticed. And I'll give us a look while we're talking right now. Uh-oh. I think my battery died. So I'm going to have to deal with that in a little bit. But yeah, so we are going to be exploring that. We're going to be talking about all the differences that have been, well, excuses really, about the things that have been said about contracts and why they're okay. And we're going to introduce you to the kinky treaties. This is something, and I want to thank everyone who's showing up now. This wasn't even an idea 12 hours ago. I want you to understand that. I woke up at 8 o'clock in the morning. The first thing I saw was more excuses about contracts. And I suddenly realized, I don't even know what came to me, but treaties came to mind. So I'm pretty excited about that. So we are going to be talking about, and we're going to be having a great conversation today. If you guys have comments, questions, concerns, please hit us up. I am going to be having my co-host on Cool Kinks of Our Lives joining us in just a few minutes. I'm actually going to quickly grab the extension for the phone. Bear with me. Here we go. The reason I need the extension is in case anyone wants to make a comment or reach out to me. I like having the other phone plugged in, so we're going to do it right now. We're just waiting for Wandering Alice to officially join us. So if you guys have any questions, concerns, comments, again, about contracts, or even before we begin, please start putting them in the chat bars. We'll be checking them out. And I'm going to check... let's see if we can quickly look at this. When was the first BDSM contract? Let's see. All right, so my understanding about the contracts was they were definitely around in the 80s. I think maybe in the 70s. But there is no real well-written history of contracts. And I've tried to look this up. I know it was in the 80s. And I know because a reference is made about them in certain BDSM materials. So, here we go. The Ultimate Guide to BDSM Contracts. And they call it consensual bondage. See, people have no idea about this stuff. They call it the light BDSM contract. This is just bad information. No history. This is not the Ultimate Guide. Big thing, it was in the secretary. It was in the secretary. That's right, Lilith. That's one of the things. How frequently should treaties be amended, revised, revisited for the safety and consent of all parties in a dynamic, said Moda. And I think I'm saying that right, Moda, right? Like soda, Moda. So we're going to talk about all this tonight. Oh, Alice is there. Why am I not hearing you, Alice? Oh, I have to add you to the stage. There we go. Alice, you there?
Yeah, I'm there. I was wondering what was up. Yeah.
I keep forgetting I have to add people because on TikTok I just hit accept and they come in, and here I actually accept it. So we're just starting off. Do you remember the first time you heard a BDSM contract? Because to me, I don't think it was until
it was early on in me joining, which was 2012, 2013. It wasn't too far in, but it came in two ways. It came from the 50 Shades of Toxicity.
Yeah.
And the other one is it came presented more in the old guard leather capacity. Those are kind of the two directions it came to me from.
Yeah, okay. And that kind of tracks.
Yeah.
What most have experienced. And what's that?
I was going to say, yeah. And I, early on, I, like many, the idea, it was a romanticized fantasy idea. I didn't think it sounded terrible until you actually start talking with people who, due to the term, almost took it, not almost, but have taken it too serious and caused various levels of harm by that.
Well, in fairness to it, and from my research and a lot of people, if you've been around a pretty long time, you'll sort of realize that it was not started for good intentions. It was meant to make someone feel fully owned. Now, whether or not those people, like the first 24/7 idea, someone was completely owned, and to this date, I still hear people say, oh, if they have a safe word, they're really not a slave. They're really not a submissive. They're just playing at it. This is nightmarish things still being said out loud.
Red flag doms. Or subs, because I've heard submissive say it too.
It's just people not understanding where it came from. And it came from the idea that someone could no longer walk away. Some people had called it was like sort of a marriage certificate, but a lot of times the end result was you can't leave. You're giving away all of your ownership of yourself. You become property.
Well, I do not agree with, for me, I cannot see where that concept personally is very healthy. In my experience, my understanding. But I've heard of other people that have this, but even they, maybe if they use the term contract, that's not the big part, but they typically call it a no way out, maybe contract or agreement. And like that is a whole host and web of potential issues on its own. But yeah, using contract to mean, oh, you signed up for this regardless of what you signed, because this is what I'll see a lot. Even if people are like, well, you can always renegotiate the contract. Well, they'll set it out for 6 months. So in theory, right, they're doing what's right. Well, they're calling a contract. Well, we set all of these rules and expectations up. We set that we'll renegotiate them every 6 months. Well, what happens again is if you have a life change during those 6 months, or just something happens and something no longer fits, well, you can't change it yet because the 6-month time limit isn't up.
Or worse, what happens at 6 months when the dominant decides they don't have to renegotiate now? I like everything that's going on. I'm in control. The paperwork says I'm in control. We're just going to keep going the way we want. It's written that you'll renegotiate, but it doesn't say. I've read a lot of people's contracts. Nowhere does it say that anything has to change at 6 months.
Right. It can even if. So there's that. There's also if you can't come to agreement, are you just done? So you stay for, say, another 4 months waiting for negotiation. You basically grin and bear it for 4 months, get to the renegotiation point, and they're like, well, if you're going to change it in XYZ mode, then I don't see a point in carrying on. So you kind of just limped along for 4 months to end up in what becomes an eventuality.
And we have to address people have died. It's not a joke. It's not funny. All these people who come at me, oh, I think you're just taking it too seriously. No, I'm taking it as serious as it needs to be taken, given the fact that lives have been lost for this. I think most people don't take it serious enough, and I have to take it serious for everyone, because we're in a situation where children are playing at an adult game because they can't understand it. It is like the people who say, oh, 1 or 2 drinks, I drive home fine. That is the equivalent.
Well, and I think the other problem with it is the people most at risk to fall victim to the fact that a contract is a locked in thing are going to be newer folks. So even if even if you don't call it a contract, call it an agreement. The people who are most likely to feel like they're truly locked in by that are going to be your newer folks, who are also inherently going to be the folks who don't know exactly what they need to make sure is in that contract, both to meet their own needs and expectations, but also for safety reasons.
Well, it goes deeper than that, because remember, they are new and they want to experience this, and they think this is how they have to. This is the way.
They have no idea what they're signing up for, essentially. And when you use contract, a lot of these new people are thinking of contract in the legal term because that is what they're exposed to. And contracts, the word contract is a legally binding document. So we're using a word that has a weight behind it, even though what you're really just signing actually has no real legal weight behind it. But if you're new, you don't realize that. You don't realize that somebody just dressing it up with a word to make it sound cool and fanciful, as opposed to there's potential legal repercussions here.
And it is always new people who it's used against, because anyone who's around longer than 10 minutes hears the horror stories. And what kills me is that the people who hear it go, oh, you're just taking it too seriously. I don't see the big deal. I swear to you, nothing enrages me more than someone saying the words to me, I don't see the big deal.
Well,
fuck you would be nicer.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. Fuck you to me would be nicer.
Well, and I think that's the big problem people don't see, is they're talking from their perspective. So maybe in their little bubble, in their personal experience, it wasn't an issue for them.
Yeah.
People are unaware of the fact that you aren't teaching to just them. You have a widespread audience that you're trying to account for. And it is very much, you have to account for the most vulnerable. The expectation is those who are experienced understand this nuance, and that, really it's just using a term to dress it up, as opposed to the new folks who thinks it's actually now a legally binding thing.
Well, it's the Kool-Aid drinkers. A lot of people who show up into this lifestyle early on drink the Kool-Aid and guzzle the Kool-Aid because they want the fantasy of feeling like their own. And that's the whole thing. Like when you said, oh, they haven't had a problem. And I'm always going to say, yet. They haven't had a problem yet. To me, it's always a circumstance of yet. You know what I mean? Like, I have people tell me I take it too seriously. Oh, I don't know why I'm warning this. And then those same people wind up getting hurt and coming back to me. And when they come back, I'm there.
A very basic example. I have safety shears. I do floor work. I have been lucky enough to never have to cut ropes off from someone or that I have tied up. You bet damn sure I still have my shears on me every time I use rope. Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean I get to act like in La La Land it never will.
I think what kills me the most is that there are people who just are like, and like you said, oh, I've never had a problem. I think you're taking it too seriously. And it's like, it doesn't matter if you've had a problem. It matters if it's a problem. And it also matters if there's fact in it. And to this date, not one human being has given me any good reason other than I just like how it sounds. And abusive words, let me tell you, there are a lot of abusive people who have a lot of nice words until those words are used against the person to make them feel awful.
Right.
It really just, I mean, we can go off on this too. I don't want to spend too much time right now because we have 1 hour on TikTok. And I want to introduce the new idea, the new thinking, the kinky treaties. Now, I really haven't talked to you about what this is. So this will be the first time everyone's hearing this. Honestly, I have not spoken this out. I didn't even talk to Em about it today because I wanted you guys to see the raw thing and I wanted us to work it out kind of together. I've given like little hints of the way I think it is. So without further ado, what exactly is a kinky treaty? I don't know what came to me this morning, but I don't know if it's something in the news. And I also don't know if this is a term that someone has used somewhere in the lifestyle. This is not a term I want to have my name attached to forever. This is not something I might name a comic after this, believe it or not, but I don't want ownership of this. I'm giving this to the community full out right away. Why a contract doesn't work is a contract is a legal form. You cannot make a contract in BDSM. You cannot do anything that signs away anything of your consent, your liberty, none of that when it comes to human sexuality and the things that we do in kink. There are just laws that would prevent it at this point. And even if there weren't laws, there was a whole civil war that would stop what this was. So what exactly are we having? Really, if you think about it, we're having a treaty with someone. We're making ground rules for us to coexist. And if you think about it, a treaty, usually someone is surrendering to someone to have a treaty. So there's kind of a cuteness in that as well. More importantly, the thing I love about a treaty is if both sides don't follow through on the treaty, it disintegrates on its own. No one has to say it's over. It ends on its own the minute that the terms of both sides are not met. This is just an agreement that is set up that it requires you to follow the agreement or it disappears. It goes away. To me, that was magic. That something could disintegrate if it weren't taken care of. So there doesn't have to be a big conversation. It could literally be like, you didn't live up to your end of the bargain. This is done. How amazing is that?
I mean, I see the idea behind it, and I like the idea behind it. I think for me, I'm personally I always will probably stick with just call it an agreement. Call it your dynamic guidelines, your dynamic outlines. However, I can see where treaty is a nicer word because it doesn't have that same level of legality behind it that contracts enforces.
Plus, I like that it goes away. Because when you say an agreement, there is no real end to an agreement unless you write it in. And then, like teaching, like you said a little earlier, I'm looking how to teach this. If I teach you from day one that this is a garden, and if you don't water it with everything that's necessary, it'll wither and die. That's what a treaty can be. Boom. If you do not live up to the treaty, it disappears on its own. Unlike a contract, which has time and it's going to go on this. No, none of that. If you don't live up to the treaty, poof, it's gone. I like that. That's teachable for me. And that takes the power away from predators. And I think a lot of predatory people making up excuses know what's coming. And it's always that. And someone said it in our own chat group. And I think this really happens. I'm going to make this with the person, and I'm going to, it's the great power, great responsibility thing. I talk about this a lot in comics, thanks to Spider-Man. And I think people are like, well, we'll just call it a contract. He. And then the minute someone tries to pull away or You're under contract. You signed this. You knew what you were getting into. We have a contract. And I've seen that thrown in people's faces. Having something like, because even when you call an agreement, well, you agreed to this. But if you say a treaty, you're not living up to your end of the treaty. That's a power position for someone, especially when the person who might not always feel the more empowered, because submissives are the ones who are often taken advantage of almost all of the time, so much so. So that I love agreement. Don't get me wrong. I'll never chastise anyone for calling it an agreement. I don't have a problem with agreement. I don't have a problem with boundary, framework, blueprint. All those are wonderful. But when it comes to contracts, everyone like falls in love with this dumb idea of a contract. But if I teach that if anyone's talking about a contract, they're a red flag. If I teach, look, that red flag could be that they're not uneducated, that they are uneducated, but that is still a red flag, ladies and gentlemen. Right, Alice?
Yeah. No, I agree.
Like, just because you're uneducated doesn't mean you're not a red flag, because then you're doing things you shouldn't be talking about it. Like, all the time, I have not heard, and I will still put it out there. Please, any one of you, tell me why contract is good other than you like how it sounds. One person answer that, because I have not. In the years I've talked about this, all I've ever heard, 3 things that here, I'll give you the 3 big excuses. Number 1, oh, that's always how it's been done. One of the worst fucking things you can hear, in my opinion. There is nothing worse than someone saying, well, this is just how it's always been done. Oh my, this is the 20 years. This is me being a manager when I went around to other stores and we're like, hey, why do you do it that way? Oh, I do it this way because this is how we've been doing it for 20 years. And I would look at them dead in their face and be like, wow, I didn't realize someone could do something for that long and not realize that they were doing it wrong. For fuck's sake. And then the other thing is always the other excuse I get. Well, this is like to make sure people take it serious. No, they're not going to take it serious. You're going to try to enforce it and become abusive, because someone taking the time to sit down with you and fill out paperwork, they're taking it serious. You don't have to call it.
But if it's not being taken serious, let it fizzle out on its own, or call it out and just be done with it. Don't try and use some piece of paper to enforce that they take it more serious. Like, they will take it as serious as they feel they need to. If it doesn't meet your standard, then maybe decide whether or not they're a good fit for you as a partner.
And I mean, we need to stress this. Hold on, I'm going to try to make sure this does not speak.
Yeah.
Hold on. I cannot say this out loud enough that a lot of times contracts also go hand in hand with someone going off of a checklist. BDSM is not one size fits all. You cannot force one person to be all the things you want them to be. They have to naturally grow and you have to adjust. If you're looking for plastic pieces, then you shouldn't be in BDSM. Because what makes BDSM so interesting, so amazing, is how many people are actually part of BDSM that is empowering, that is just uplifting, and it has to be on an individual basis, and a contract doesn't let someone be an individual. Earlier in the show, we were asked, well, how often should you renegotiate a treaty? That's the great thing about a treaty. A treaty can always be revised. You can always change a treaty. It is organic because it needs to be met and things can be changed. I love it. My opinion, newer relationships should have 30-day check-ins. For the first 6 months, every 30 days, what's going right, what's going wrong. And I did this in my own practice. Worked wonderfully. At the 6-month mark, you go to 6 months, 6 months. And then after the 6 months, and you're right around the year and a half, you decide to do an annual one. And then the annual one winds up going into once a year, but also a check-in in the middle of the year. Hey, anything you want to bring up? And we did that. Me and my partner, my masochist, just had our 6-month review. And it wasn't big because we didn't sit down with the paperwork. We added, I think, a couple things and tweaked a few things because we had the conversation. But we also leave porch time, which allows mechanical work. And I call it the garage now, where we take out our dynamic into the garage and we make sure we work on it every so often and make sure it's all tuned up and ready to go. I'm sure Alice wants to add something at this point.
Well, I think so. On the treaty itself, I think for me the biggest benefit is treaty is inherently negotiated by both sides.
Yo.
So that's a big one, right? As opposed to a contract, typically when I sign a contract, like a bank loan, contract for service, let's say even an internet provider, they provide me a document, I read it, and I either sign it wholesale or I don't sign it at all. There's very small chances of tweaking anything there.
Yep.
Right? So benefit of the treaty, again, to kind of point that out. And then, like you were saying with how frequently do you check in, as frequently as you feel you need. Like you said, I recommend that you set up a standard, and in the beginning of a new dynamic, a new partnership, anything like that, it should be fairly frequent, every 30 days. Maybe more if you're only playing once a month, maybe you do every couple months. And over time, you can extend that, but you should also have time where you get together to do those maintenance checkups that are not necessarily sitting down and going over all the paperwork you did during the initial negotiation. If you need to, you should have a way to communicate to your partner, regardless of being top or bottom, dom or sub, that you need to have that check-in. So I also recommend having it set up on a given schedule, as well as an ability to kind of ask for impromptu sessions.
Exactly. And man, contracts, if you don't know who's winning the contract, you're losing. Let me just put it to you that way. There is no other way to address that. If you don't know who's winning the contract, who's the one getting the most out of it, it's not you. Because everyone gets a little more out of a contract. And I always hear, well, we have one that's someone had said, we have a Venn diagram. Contracts don't have Venn diagrams. That's not what a contract is. You all heard something and you want to drink the Kool-Aid and seem cool. Well, we have a contract. I think you sound like an idiot when you say you have a contract. So I've read contracts for years now, and they're always written so fucking poorly. Did you know that in a legal contract that if you don't have the right punctuation, whatever was written in that line is no longer legal? Do you know typos disqualify things? I bet you all didn't know that, but you know that now. Someone doesn't put a period, dot, and I. It's a problem in a contract. Spelling mistakes are problems in contracts. If you didn't spell something right, that can be thrown out in a court of law. I bet you didn't know all that, but no, half of you are out there, oh, I'm writing a contract. You like the ego behind it. And the submissive's like, well, I'm under contract. It's more power over me. There's nothing sexier to me than someone who knows what's happening to them, has the door, there's the door, and always chooses to go forward with you. They never worry because there's always a door. I think you have to be small-minded, small, you know what, to actually need a contract. And you are a red flag to me because I've never seen it. The idea of a red flag sounds really cool when you're brand new, of course. Oh, this person's going to completely give themselves to me. Until you realize that if they don't feel like they have 100% out, it stops being BDSM and it starts getting ugly, doesn't it, kids? Doesn't it?
Oh, very quickly.
Yeah, if someone's doing something because they don't think they have a choice, you might be sharing a cell with someone, and you might be the one who doesn't have a choice, legally enforced. But let's get to some comments. We'll start over in our... I think we did it. Let me just make sure we got the YouTube. We had, how frequently should treaties be mended, revised, revisited for safety and consent of all parties in the dynamic? As often as possible, as often as wanted, and as often as needed. That's the answer for me. What do you think, Wondering Alice?
I think that's perfectly it. I think that, like I said, to me, the biggest thing is to, like, more critical to me almost than even scheduling them, is you need a way, whether you have, say, I want to call it a trigger phrase. I know trigger, that word can take some, but you need to have a way to kind of enact that you need to have that discussion, those maintenance session, whether it's the garage time like you were talking, or you just have scheduled times. Make sure you have a way to know, to communicate that you need to set time apart for those conversations as well. And do them, like you said, as often as needed or wanted.
Absolutely. I mean, you just communicate, communicate, communicate. Contracts end communication. If you think about it, that's what they do. They stop more conversation. You obey, I say so.
Yep.
It's caveman bullshit. And understand contracts are not that old, especially in comparison to the BDSM lifestyle. Contracts aren't even as old as the idea of the contract itself. And BDSM, I know there are were references in like the 70s and 80s. It was like, if I remember correctly, it came from leather and it was considered like an enrollment, like an army thing, and it comes from that, for the record, just so you all know. And then it became more of like a legal contract in the 80s. And why was it in the 80s? Because the 80s were popular with legal dramas. And someone got it in their head, well, if I have someone sign a contract, because you can make a contract. Me and Alice can make a contract about this show if we wanted to. We wanted to make it about BDSM. That's all legal, and we both have to follow it. Even if we didn't get witnesses, if the other one could prove the contract was signed, that would go. I make contracts from comic books. I do, and I've written them, and I've had my lawyer friends rip into me when they read all the mistakes I made, or if I didn't do punctuation right, you know? You have to understand, like, this shit is not a joke. You should never be signing a contract, by the way, without talking to a lawyer either. Unless you're willing to lose everything that you're signing, you should always have a lawyer read it. All right, let's get to some comments. We got some people. We got a lot of comments actually. This is a good conversation. We're starting all the way back with it. Leaves both with the power. I don't have anything before that. I'm sorry. I don't think there's. If there was anything before that, I apologize. I'll look here. Start.
Okay. So I'm able to look back a little bit, at least in the order on my screen. And so where are we going?
I know.
I've got one. It says, I say ours is an adjustable manual for my own structural needs. And it says, it is fluid always.
That's not a contract.
Yep.
Congratulations. Yep. You just told me you don't know what a contract is. So you sound like who says, I'm only going to have 2 or 3 drinks and I can drive. That's how it sounds to me because you're careless.
I think that this is such an old comment that I think it was when we were saying, like, what kind of term would you use to describe it? And I think they were saying that they use like an adjustable, they think of it as an adjustable manual, not saying that that's what a contract is.
If that's how you meant it, then that's fair. But if you think that's what a contract is, and again, sometimes these comments are out of context. So we really don't know when you guys left it. There's no timestamp. So we couldn't even guess. You know, we've been on for what, 35 minutes maybe? No, yeah. 32. So we won't 100% know.
And I'm not going to, because of that, I'm not going to read every comment we've got on TikTok just because I can't. It's hard to keep track of it. So we have, I think, Debbie. The contract wouldn't hold up in court, so it's not legally enforceable. And I did respond, and I wanted to share this for everyone not reading along. That's exactly it. It's cosplaying legal terms for a fantasy boost.
But it's more dangerous because people turn around and say, no, you signed a contract. This is legal. Go look it up yourself. I'm not going to take all you horses to the water this time. Go look up how many people have died because of BDSM contracts. Even one would be enough. And there was one actually covered by the news media, full out covered. Guy just shrugged his shoulders and walked away alive.
Yeah.
It's disgusting. Go ahead, Alice.
Well, and that's just it. So I said it's cosplaying legal terms for a fantasy boost, and that's the problem. A lot of people don't realize you're just cosplaying. They think it could actually be legal. And that's how we end up with people taking it too seriously to the point of no longer being on this plane. Then it actually came up from a couple people talking about marriage contracts. And I thought that was an interesting parallel. They're not actually contracts in the U.S. It's typically a marriage license. You have
Though,
received permission to get married, and then it becomes a legally binding. I can't think of it.
in some states, it is actually a contract, and I
Is
did
it?
look this. Yeah. And now, really quickly, you want to know the huge difference here? I'll give you the two quick differences. One, you had to have other people involved. In other words, you had to go to a priest, the justice of the priest, or that, and they were given terms out loud that you would then have to agree to, and you would have to sign for a license. And if you actually do a license, if you've ever gotten married, you realize the license comes with kind of a manual of things that you're agreeing to, and they tell you this is a legal union. Now, a marriage doesn't give you inherent rights over your other partner. Believe it or not, it does not. Not nowadays. There are very little rights over another person. There are just reasons that you can end the marriage. Like I can't, if I got married now, I couldn't force my partner to do anything anymore, as it should be. But there are tax implications, there are medical implications, and there's ownership rights over objects. So that is not the good argument. Not only that, but when you guys break up your BDSM dynamic and have to go to court and pay for a lawyer, then you can have that argument. Don't bring stupid things to an important conversation, because no one who's breaking up the BDSM dynamic or play situation has to go through court. So please don't try to confuse it with stupidity, because that is stupidity. Because you don't.
Where they're taking it is they talk about the atrocities that are done under the guise of being a married person, specifically forced interactions between married couples. And they're pointing out how problematic even that current concept of marriage can be in some areas of our country and the world as a whole.
As far as I'm aware, you are not allowed to force anyone since 2000, I want to say 10. There was some sort of Supreme Court case which found, and I'd have to look this up, so understand, this is just off the top of my head. It's not going to be 100% accurate, but there was a huge reversal that marriage does not negate consent for access to a human body. It is still a reason to get divorced. You can still say, well, this person isn't sleeping with me, and I don't feel my needs are being met in that way. And that is a legal reason to get a separation and a divorce. It is not ownership over a person. And the whole thing, the biggest reason that failed, can you guess what it was, kids? Those of you who guessed at home, the Civil War, you would be right. You cannot own a human being in the United States of America. Even the Supreme Court said even married people have autonomy of choice and consent. And that was one of the biggest things for rape. And we rarely say that word. We're probably going to get in trouble if we say it more than once. But yeah, that was a huge moment where that really did change it. Because before that Supreme Court ruling, there were literally court things where it was like, but we're married, I can't do that. So like marriage is even the worst thing to bring up in this, because marriage literally had those things taken away from it because they weren't constitutional.
Yep. And even though there's no legal backing to that, we still fight with there is still fallout from the fact that was ever part of it.
Mm-hmm.
That we still deal with today.
Now, the thing is, I don't think it was ever part of it. I think it was an inference. I think people thought that they had the right to do such things.
We could go into that for a long time of some of the other institutions that led to it being that way, but that's not what this convo's about.
But it does prove that when you give someone a little bit of power, how badly it goes and how quickly it goes.
Exactly.
I don't even think we should have marriage anymore in America. I think marriage should be like a 5-year bumper sticker thing. Oh, you guys want to be married? We'll give you the benefits for 5 years. We will. Tax breaks, all that. But we won't take you serious until 5 years, because most marriages fail before 5 years is over. I think 7 years is like the ultimate test.
Yeah. 7 year. Yeah. 7 years. 7 can be pretty rough. I'm trying to read through some of the other comments because it is hard to see where they come in. Comments around basically what we said with how often you should check in. So we had a comment where someone said, call it a leash lease and add the option to trade up every so often. I don't know how I mean, that maybe works in like puppy play, but again, that makes it sound very one-sided. Right? Because like when I lease or rent a property, like if I'm getting an apartment and I'm renting it, the landlord gives me the rental agreement or the rental contract. And I basically just have to sign it. And it's entirely about them protecting their interests. There is almost nothing in there about protecting my interests or my rights.
No.
There can be, but not often.
As a matter of fact, there's so little rights to us that the government had to step in and give us rental rights that supersede those contracts.
Correct.
That's right. Every state has different ones. It was left at the state level, but look in your local municipality and you'll find out what renter actual I don't think they're called rental laws, it's rental protection in most states. That protect
renters'
you.
rights.
So even if you sign a contract and that contract has something that is unlawful in that contract, it negates whatever's in the contract at that point. Not the entire contract, but just the part of it that would go against the local administrations. Now, you're going to ask yourself a very important question. Well, if they was just going to get knocked out in court, why would they have ever written it that way? Because they want to fucking fool you. They want to take advantage of you being naive.
Mm-hmm.
Not great. Humans are scummy when there's no accountability. That's why they're courts. 90% of this channel is based upon us talking about consent. It always comes back to consent 90% of the time. And we still have to talk about it. Imagine if you all got consent, how little content would be on this channel most days. We might actually get into talking about fun stuff like the color of the rope and why we picked the color of the rope and how pretty ropes are.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, I have to keep coming back to remind people. I had one guy barking at me. I've been 20 years, and in 20 years, contracts have worked just fine for me. I would love to talk to the people that signed those contracts. Love to talk to those people who signed those contracts and see if it was great for them too. Because I guarantee you, all these old people out there who talk about how great the 1950s were, they probably did some shady shit in the 1950s.
Mm-hmm.
Those boomers were getting away. I don't even know if they're alive anymore. By the way, R.I.P. Ozzy. Those boomers, man, those boomers are doing some dumb shit. I mean, you can't and I would have said 10 years ago, when would I have wanted to live the 1950s? Why? Because people paint out the 1950s look like this amazing time in American history, as long as you were white and male.
Yep.
If you weren't white and male, probably a really shitty time to be living.
Yeah. Well, and like the counter of that is I always like, well, the 1950s household, right? And I'm like, yeah, them ladies were on a lot of substances to get through that period in time.
What was it? What was Valium? Valium was huge back then.
Yeah.
It was a way to get your wife to calm down and behave. I'm not kidding. There were ads like that.
Mommy's Little Helper.
I'm going to do a quick speed round so we can get everyone's comments in. Time on TikTok is running out.
Mm-hmm.
Shelly says no safe word, no play period. Agreed. I'm jumping over comments that don't make sense in context and I can't figure them out. So don't be mad at me. This is just because we've had a great conversation. Gets and Shiggle says they used a contract of marriage to allow the spousal. Yep. Forced. Yep. Exactly. And that just proves my point why contracts are awful. Someone said, Lisa said, no, it hasn't. It hasn't how it's always been done. I'm not sure what that was. If you want to follow up with that, I'd love to address it. Young ladies on top of it, not enough touching arranged marriages. Not even touching arranged marriages. Yeah, arranged marriages. So that was from Debbie. Let's see. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know. when people make general commentary and we're not looking at the comments, it's very hard to know where it's from. Again, with apologies. Doms are limited by what subs allow. Not always. Not if the sub doesn't know how to negotiate and is convinced to trust the Dom. And this is why contracts are so bad, because wording is made, well, I'll make the decision of what toys we'll use. Okay, until the submissive finds the toy that they hate. But now the contract says that the Dom gets to have pick the toys. I think this happens a lot of times. I think a lot of people who come in, and rightfully so, have learned. You understand it, and you're like, I would never be that naive. I never look at it that way. We all have our thing in our past where we were pretty dumb and pretty naive, and we didn't. And we got taken advantage of. We signed a contract we shouldn't, with like a car or a house or an apartment lease. There's always something you just don't know because you were raised different. You didn't grow up like, for me. I didn't grow up with realty and someone owning a house. I have no idea how that shit did it. No one taught me how to do my checking book and like your bank accounts and all that. They don't teach that in school. They don't teach about loans in school. And that's a problem. So you can't say, if they're not teaching that basic human shit, that everyone should just know better. And I think some people get that in their head. That would never happen to me. And then suddenly someone gets in a relationship where it does happen to them and they get stuck. It is so easy to get outside and say, how could you let that happen? Instead of living it and suddenly realizing how deep into something you are and how afraid you are. Especially, understand, some people force people to have kids when they're under contracts. They do things on purpose. They are gaslighting and manipulating people.
Well, and this is my issue with the whole, the Dom only does what the sub allow, is this. There is a point in time during certain kinds of play where the sub literally couldn't stop crap.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So really what you're saying is, if your top is an ethical top who's taken the time to negotiate with you, to know what your boundaries are, then they'll only play within the realm of those boundaries. Yes, you're right. The key here, though, is that the top is an ethical, good, trustworthy person. And not everyone who claims the title of top or dom actually is. So we really are kind of setting up new people for this false sense of security that just because they claim the title of dom, they're always going to respect your boundaries and won't do anything outside of them.
Yep.
You need to take the time to confirm that that top actually is that person.
Yep. And I want to touch on grit and shiggles. I think that's it. Open, honest communication is key to all relationships and all aspects of life. Here's the problem. Contracts stop open communication. They define, they tell you what you're allowed, not allowed to do. That's why we always have this problem. And that's why we're always talking about this, because so many people want to play. We want to cosplay BDSM, not really get to know it, and suddenly come back and go, well, I don't know how this happened, why I'm here. And it can be very scary. And even when someone makes the misconceptions, it doesn't mean we don't stand there to help them. And it doesn't mean I won't stop screaming until people realize what I'm saying isn't for my own benefit. It's for the benefit of others. People are talking a lot about check-ins. Check-ins are amazing. One of the easiest check-ins to do with your partner in play that does not require communication. From when you first start playing with them for the first time, take your two fingers, put it in their open hand. Say, if you don't squeeze my hand, we don't continue to play. That's simple, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see. It's dangerous if you don't state that it's for fantasy and not giving that informed consent. Everything is dangerous without informed consent. I mean, it's informed, consent. You can't get consent if you're not informed about what you're about to consent to. Let's see. And I'm looking. Someone said they didn't like marriage. They don't like contracts. Ohio doesn't allow grape in marriage, but most states probably do. No, most states do not. Again, I believe the Supreme Court made it so grape is now a national. It's a federal crime. It's no longer a local crime, and that's what changed it. That does not. Alice says does not recognize it. Are you sure about that with Ohio? I'm pretty sure that changed. I would have to look deeper, but I'm pretty sure that changed. last time I heard, all 50 states were now compliant with that. There are people who tried to change it back, of course, dumbasses, but I'm pretty sure it's now in every state that you can't just force someone. Between play partner with someone you are in a total power exchange, yes, there's a difference. And the sad thing is that contracts are being used for play partners now, again, to try to own someone. Total power exchange is when someone wants to give away total power. But, and I've said this many a times, the people who I know who are into TPE, that got into PTE, even 10 years, 15 years, 20 years after marriage, they know the boundaries. They've had a decade of those conversations. So even though it's he, I get to be in total control. Let me tell you, and this was said to me at an event, and it was the smartest thing ever. They said, I'm the master. I'm totally in control. Everything I say says goes. But when I look at them and I see it in their face exactly that I'm not going to win this and I'm wrong, if I keep pushing, I'm not going to be able to call myself master for long. If you do not take care of the human being, they will no longer want to be your human being. It is that simple. There is a reason humanity has had slavery and rebelled against it at every stage in the history. The more you make someone feel like they don't have a choice, the less they want to be involved. Our lifestyle is not about taking away choice. It is about surrendering choice. Never forget the finiteness of that. When someone is choosing to go on the roller coaster versus being forced on at, boom, boom point. I believe that this was I'm sorry if I'm reading this wrong. 1993 marital R was illegalized. I think that's the proper way to say that. Yes, our marriage is archaic, says Debbie. I completely agree. I misspoke. That changed for Ohio last year. There is now a law against it. Yep. Every state now. And I know this because I keep up with these things. And I think it was John Oliver did a whole expose on how long it actually took us to get here, but we are there. And no, just like the Epstein files, if Trump tries to fuck with that, I guarantee you there will be riots in the streets. I know where are the tax exemptions for us not being married, not putting ourselves through harm. It'd be less on the psychiatry bills. There should be a community sub-rights. There should be no community anything. Dynamics are individual. It needs to be about the two people, communication and conversation. Are you still with me, Alice?
Yeah, I've just been letting you. I'm with you. Do not set the standard, because as soon as you set a standard, you lose the ability to individualize and personalize it for each person.
BDSM is not one size fits all. Stop thinking that. It's just because you're going to educators who think there's only one way. It's called truism. We have a term for this. There is no true way forward. These are the same educators who will talk about, well, active consent is a great thing to teach. What's the other consent that they're trying to push now? Assumed consent? How the fuck did assumed consent come back? It's bad coins people pick up, and it's from book talk, and it's all this shit. Well, you can assume consent, and that sounds great. Oh, my boyfriend knows they can kiss me. That's assumed. Holy shit, my boyfriend just stuck something in a hole I never wanted anything in and told me that they assumed it was okay because I made a joke about it. Slippery slopes. There's no such thing as assumed. There is only obtained. And that's only informed, consent.
Yeah. Well, and here to kind of go with the idea of like a set of rights or anything, once you set that, and this is the same issue with contracts, once you establish some set of rules that everybody's expected to play by, you stop having conversations that lead to a deeper discussion. So if you had a like some sort of communicated standard or set that subs should always kneel. Okay, well, if that's just set in stone, it kind of just kills the conversation of, well, I can't actually do that because I have bad knees. Like, as dumb as this is, but this is what happens. Well, I just assume that since it's in the sub guidelines that all subs should kneel, I just assumed you'd be able to kneel too. So when I put you in that position last week. I didn't think it would be a big deal. Oh, well, no, I just had knee replacement surgery. I shouldn't be doing that. Just have the conversation instead of establishing a standard. Just talk. But also, even in contract, I have seen where people have in a contract said that every Tuesday would be their garage time. Do you know how often they just don't bring up important conversations until Tuesday and literally hinder their communication and ability to improve things quicker because it's not Tuesday?
Yeah, and there was a comment that was made, and I did my homework because this is something I had heard, and this is laughable because they took it from the BDSM lifestyle, and this is crazy, but it's true. Pretty sure marriage, couple, family counselors do contracts, but also establish rights of each. And the minute I looked it up, sure enough, are contracts a good idea in therapy? How they're being misused, how they are misinterpreted. Reddit, these do not work. There's actually a thing written by an association that says, let's see, a counseling contract, is it really necessary? So there are already people saying that this is bad and not good because, again, terminology is bad. Why would it be a contract? Any relationship needs room to grow, to breathe, to change, to evolve. Relationships are not supposed to be a job. Contracts for employment, that makes sense. Contracts going to school, that makes sense. Contracts with your lease, that makes sense. It has expectations and things that you have to expect to happen. So it's just the reality. Never heard of assumed consent, but I hadn't heard of CNC until recently either. Assumed consent is one of the fucking worst things ever, but you'll have educators on this very app telling you, no, this is the right way forward because we assume we can kiss each other. No, at one point I asked my partner, can I kiss you? And if they said yes, and I kissed them again, and they said yes, I would ask, can I keep kissing you whenever I want? And they might say, I don't like public displays of affection, but you can kiss me any other time. Or they might say, I'm not into kissing, but you can hold my hand, you can hug me. That's called communication negotiation. That's what we're going to be doing. And with that said, Alice, you have anything to add? We got about 3 minutes to get out of here.
Nope. I think that's it for tonight. Come back for more in a week or two.
Now, I will say this really quickly. We are going to stay live on the YouTube channel. Want to know how to get to the YouTube channel? It's really simple. Go over to Kink Educator on YouTube right now. It's going to be the one that we're live on. We will continue the conversation over there. I want to thank, like many of you, for taking the time. This was, like I started today, 12 hours ago. This wasn't even a thought in my mind. I was still asleep, and we had this amazing event. We had up to 20 people watching at once on TikTok. We still have people watching over here on the YouTube channel. Well, we'll just had the last person leave the YouTube channel. I think they thought we were signing off, but we will be here for a little longer. We are also going to go over to, for those of you who don't want to go on to YouTube, we will go live. Alice can stay as long as they want until we go to get off. I'm going to be going live on Free Hugs and Spanks. With that said, thank you all. Remember that, and Alice will know where this is from. Submission is not a gift. It is something that is earned through communication, negotiation, and only when informed, consent is achieved is submission given to another individual. And of course, domination, it's the reward to a submissive opening up and giving submission. Thank you for joining us tonight. We'll be back with another cool program in August. For now, I'm going to say goodnight and thank you all for being part of this amazing event. And remember, don't use a BDSM contract. They're bad. Use a kinky treaty because they expire if people don't live up to their end of the bargain. And I guarantee you a treaty is a bargain. All right, Alice. We probably got a few minutes of being alone. Well, you have one person watching. Someone has joined us. You free to answer. But yeah, I mean, that was kind of like I woke up this morning and I was like, oh my God, a treaty. I don't even know where it came from. Like it was like half asleep moment. And I was like, yeah, let's do this.
Well, I'll admit, I was not, I generally late, so I didn't want to get into this as much. When you very briefly just messaged me that you had this idea. And initially I'm like, Yeah, I don't know how I feel about this. Do we need to give it a word? Is treaty the right word? And I was thinking through it most of the day, and it's grown on me throughout the day. The idea of it. Like I said, I probably won't use it a ton, but I've also never been one to use the term contract. But I can see the benefit, especially for teaching and everything, to switch to that kind of a term to make it very specific. Because the other part of it too, and there was a comment earlier talking about explaining the difference between play partners and TPE. And you have many areas in between as well, you know. You
Yeah,
could have a dynamic that's not a TPE as well.
absolutely. And it's, it's a, I just don't know. Like, I mean, I remember us getting rid of the idea of
Um,
contracts.
yeah, they're just so antiquated. Like,
It doesn't. It never made sense. It's an abusive tool that people fell in love with, and that kills me. Oh, if someone takes, I just had another person. If someone takes a contract seriously, that's on them. No, fuck you. You're an idiot for using the wrong term. How about that? Because you have
yeah,
no good reason to use contract other than you think it's sexy and hot, all until someone gets abused. So you go tell someone, and it's like the whole grape fantasy, right? There's this
yeah,
whole fantasy, people like it, and you know what? There's that validity there. But that would be, and I want you to understand, to go around holding up a sign that says "grape is great." That is what people are doing with contracts. Well, I like grape, so everyone should like grape. That is the stupidity of a contract
yeah,
conversation.
yeah. I like the term, so everybody needs to use it. No, no, no. Well, and this is where it's a weird societal thing where everybody feels the need to have their existence justified by outward people, often on the internet who they've never met and never will meet. I
Yep.
don't need you to argue with me that you like contracts and you want to use them. You know what? You're not the person who's going to take what I'm trying to explain to you oftentimes and grow with it and really like do some critical thinking and think through what we're saying. We're not here for you. If you want to argue to blue in the face to keep the term, do you, boo, but please move on. It's for the people that are learning, who are looking to continue education, looking for growth, just joining, trying to get their feet under them. That's what we're trying to do, and that's what's so important. People need to realize it is not one size fits all. Whether it's the term contracts, the term master slave, dom sub, top bottom, just because it works for you doesn't mean you get to force that ideology on everyone else. I don't see why people are so focused on trying to validate their existence by forcing others to join in.
So I shit you not. This is a public comment, so I don't mind reading it. Someone says, as someone who deals with contracts in business and have a decent, not has, but have a decent knowledge in contracts, I will tactfully disagree because they aren't enforceable in court of laws on compulsion and harm, then by legal nature are voidable. So then why use the term fucking contract again?
Exactly. It's
not a contract. This is the Venn diagram guy. I'll read it to you. This is the initial comment.
Yeah, I saw the Venn diagram one.
Oh, okay. Like what? Like just shut up. I know it's a social media platform. And look, you go be social. By the way, we're joined by Free Hugs and Spanks in the middle of this conversation about BDSM contracts sucking and kinky treaties being the way of the future. And it's just, you're talking to talk now. And I understand a lot of social media is that, but there is such beautiful art in keeping your mouth shut. Just don't talk about things you don't understand. If you're just new to it, ask a question first. This guy just proved my point and doesn't realize he just proved my point. What the fuck? If you can't even understand that you're going against what you just wrote, how can I have a conversation with you?
You can't. You can't. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I don't know how to pronounce that name.
Michaela?
Michaela?
Are we looking at YouTube? I
Yeah.
call it Michaela.
Can you read Michaela's comment? I gotta grab my other cord. I gotta check something.
So, Michaela, thank you both for being educators. I appreciate what y'all are doing here. We're trying. And I appreciate you sharing that comment because it does help to know that people are seeing the energy and the effort we're trying to put out there, and it's helping people. I think that's the best thing is when people do say stuff like, "Oh my gosh, I never thought about it that way." I think that's one of my favorite comments we'll get on things is I had never thought about it like that, because it's showing us that we're bringing up topics that need to be discussed and actually getting people to think of things in a different perspective.
I think some of that too comes down to the first time they hear it, they just assume what they heard is right.
Oh, yeah.
Why wouldn't they? Why would someone go to their way to lie to you about something? That kind of, I get it. That hits. Why would someone lie?
But people underestimate the level of stupidity that exists in the world. And so maybe they didn't know they were lying to you, or just giving you bad information. Like, I feel like that's partly a lot of what's happened, especially the contracts, is people have just disseminated bad information so much that nobody dares question the status quo of the term, right? Like, and because that's what they were taught, as soon as you try and tell them that maybe they were taught wrong, they would rather push back because nobody likes having their reality challenged than just sit there, listen to the argument and the discussion against it, and actually hear what's being said. Like, use your brain. You don't need to be spoon-fed everything.
You would assume, right?
Yeah, very quickly I assume nothing these days.
So here I'm going to read this to the audience. Hey, Sage, you're free to come on if you want. We could do the YouTube, TikTok thing. So this is from Hala. Contracts are tremendously hot and fun, and if folks are convincing themselves that contracts are real, binding in some way, then they can't break the contract. That they're ruining it for the rest of us who live in reality. Who are you, Hala? Like, when did you get here? What are they ruining for you? You're stuck in fantasy. You're stuck in book talk. And as a matter of fact, let's respond to Hala.
Well, and here's my thing: if your dynamic is so fragile that this is ruining it for you, I think you need to turn inward.
Yeah, let me answer her. Hi, just a reality check. Contracts you're saying are your fantasy and fictional. What I'm telling you in real life is people have died. So what's more important? You feeling good about a word contract that will then help predators use it against other people, or you realizing that saying it could literally hurt another human being? Because that's the choice you get to make. Either way, anyone who talks about contracts in a positive way are red flags. You've been warned. People will look at you a certain way, and you will be judged for saying contracts. And you will attract the wrong type of person. I've seen this many a times in 30 years. All I can do is warn you. Horse, this is water. What you do next determines how long you get to go without being hurt. Because I guarantee you, if you keep talking how great contracts are, someone's going to hear it that you don't want to, and you could wind up getting hurt. And I personally never want to see that happen. I don't understand people because they don't even realize that crying out I love contracts will attract dangerous people.
Exactly. And a lot of these people, I do often think a lot of these people are either in echo chamber communities or are online or at home only kinksters. And the reason for that is when I go to community events and stuff in the region that I'm in, people kind of give you a sideways, like, side eye if you say you have a contract. Because most people that are not leather have learned that they're toxic. They're not like as a whole, contract is a toxic kind of thing. Like, so they always kind of give side eye when you're like, oh yeah, we have a contract. It's just also not something people talk about that have been in this lifestyle for a long time. So like you said, to me, people who use the word contract, there's 3 ways I go. Leather, leaning to the old guard ways. Brand newbie who came here from something like 50 Shades or some other book talk something and don't know any better. Or predatory, looking for someone who they can actually truly use a contract to manipulate in a terrible way.
I don't know why it took so long, but Sage is finally on. For some
Yep.
reason, it was not connecting. Hey, Sage, what's going on?
So, major updates.
You are live on YouTube. You are live on.
I'm trying to think how I want to.
Yeah. No, I just want to make sure you knew we're live on YouTube too.
Yeah, no, don't worry. It's all good. It's good. The YouTube people don't know who I am. That's fine. That and my face is original, so it doesn't matter. But major updates. So, my partner and I met somebody recently, so that's exciting.
Cool.
So that's really as much as I got going, like update wise. Like just major update is like big deal for me. But other than that, more work all the time. I'm so tired.
Sorry.
Yeah. Anyway, what did I miss?
We were talking about the new term that I came up with, which is we're getting rid of contracts and we're replacing it with kinky treaties. And that's because if you don't keep up your end of the bargain in a treaty, it disintegrates on its own. So it doesn't have to be broken. It breaks through actions that don't stand up to the treaty. Just did a 1-hour video about it. Alice is joining us too. I'm sure you've heard Alice in the background. Alice is over on YouTube.
Of course. Well, you know what else? Like, as I keep thinking on the treaty, so you're talking about how if you don't keep up with it, it just kind of fizzles out, right?
Yeah.
If one party doesn't meet their part of the treaty just ceases to exist.
Yep.
I brought up how treaties are inherently required to be negotiated by all parties, right? But the other part I like about it is it also explains and allows for an imbalance, right? Like if you just think in like like in treaties of anything, well, I'll give you gold, and in return you give me silver. I don't know, whatever, right? It gives you the space for some of that power shift that a lot of dynamics are trying to create, right?
Yeah.
You know, so something such as you are the dom, I'm trying to think of what's, you plan the scenes kind of a thing. I agree to them, but then maybe I take up some more of the like way after cleanup of the equipment, like possibly not the immediate cleanup, but like maybe getting the ropes cleaned if that needs to be, or actually washing toys, that kind of thing. It allows for kind of that give and take of I'll take a little bit more here and maybe you'll take a little bit more there. So while you're creating this inherent imbalance, you're actually expelling out how it does even out for both parties to get what they want.
Like power exchange.
Exactly.
Which treaty deals with. If you really think about it, treaties are all about the power exchange between two entities.
Exactly.
So what do you think of treaty, Sage?
I definitely think that I like the concept of a treaty much more than the concept of a contract when it comes down to it, for the simple fact of, if we treat it as a treaty, it is an even exchange between individuals. It is a give and take, and it makes that very clear. And I do like the fact that, a treaty dissolves instantly the moment it's broken. It's not that you have to go and go, oh, I don't want to do this no more, and then possibly fight for that. It's a, no, you didn't hold up your end of the deal, so I'm done, and I'm walking away.
Yep.
more about contracts and how even just the term in and of itself is toxic and implies an inability to withdraw consent.
Yep.
And something that I think either you posted a video about it or you brought it up in the Kink Advocate or Kink Issues group chat. You had brought up that the only reason that contracts are even seen prevalently currently or talked about more prevalently currently is because of 50 Shades of Grey. And to anybody that's listening to either this here on TikTok or on YouTube, 90% of what I talk about when I get on the live is the difference between kink and media and kink and reality. I hate when I see inaccurate pieces of kink represented in media that and then instantly somehow manage to get translated into reality. Because a lot of the times those aspects are toxic, are unsafe, or are just not properly thought through. And we have to, like what you just said before responding to that one person who said, oh, well, a contract is my fantasy. Okay, your fantasy does not negate someone else's reality. It does not negate the fact that other people have been severely hurt by contracts. Other people have lost their lives because of contracts. People have lost their jobs, their families, everything. Wondering else, I feel like book talk is fading the contract thing too, like more authors may be using that now. Yes, absolutely. I see that consistently. I won't lie. Part of the I'm actually, you know what, this section, I was going to say this like almost like a guilty pleasure thing, but I talk about this a lot. I read a lot of books that have questionable content, but that's part of the reason why I like talking so much about the difference between kink and media and kink and reality, because media is purely the fantasy side. We don't see a lot of media that portrays kink in its full actuality, which includes negotiations and, thorough aftercare, thorough discussion. We don't see a lot of that. So it's important to remember that kinky media, especially when it comes down to like literature or movies or shows, isn't showing you the full picture. It's showing you the fantasy that somebody creates for themselves, or the fantasy that people are trying to portray. And there's nothing wrong with that until you twist media and reality, until you forget that there's a difference, that there's a line that has to be drawn. And I feel like a lot of recent authors that write, either smutty or kinky books also tend to forget that. Some of my favorite books are the ones that, they start with because a lot of these books, I'm the kind of person where a lot of my books have content warnings in them. So I love when the content warnings, a lot of them recently that I have seen, and I love that I'm seeing this though, is they have a little excerpt at the bottom that goes, hey, this isn't reality. This is purely fantasy. If somebody's treating you like this, or this is happening to you, it's not okay. And you need to seek help, or you need to find a way out of that situation. There are support systems, there are places you can go, protect yourself, protect your mental health, protect your physical health. We need to start seeing more of that discretion, more of that, hey, this particular situation, when translated into real life, is not okay. And that includes media, that includes contracts. There needs to be this understanding of, in reality, this does not work. This is not safe. And honestly, if I won't lie, I'm one of those people who believes that contract representation in media needs to be phased out, very much so, because again, people are human and they forget to create that separation, and that's how you end up with either newbies who end up hurt or predatory people who've been in the community far longer than they needed to be, using that to their advantage.
Absolutely. Amen to that. And it's sad. And you see, and there has to be, to Alice's point, there has to be someone on TikTok right now teaching contracts again. I guarantee you there's someone who's like, oh, contracts aren't that bad. Oh, don't take it serious. And they are either predatory or are being groomed by a predator to say that, and they're not critically thinking. Our lifestyle requires critical thinking. We have to think beyond the thing we're going to do. I want to do this with a person, and I'm going to use this thing that's going to cause leakage from their body. Let me just hit as hard as I can, and they wind up in an emergency room. That's where critical thinking comes in. How am I going to hit? Where am I going to hit? How am I going to hit to create leakage, but to protect the partner at the same point? You literally have to walk a dance of impossibilities at times where there's only this small little narrow window to pull it off. And that's what our lifestyle requires. And if you can't understand why a contract is bad, that means you're not able to critically think. Am I wrong about that?
No.
I think you're completely right. I think the critical thinking that we're missing here in this discussion of contracts, and I feel this applies, I'm going to say, I believe this thoroughly applies to both submissives in dynamics and dominance in dynamics, what I'm about to say. We have to remind ourselves that the people that we are doing these things with, the people we have dynamics with, the people we play with, are still people. Dominance, the person that you are dominating, is a person. Submissives, you are a person. Contracts are these. First of all, we talked before about the legal definition, and the dictionary definition of a contract is a legally binding documented agreement. The things that we do in the kink community don't hold legal standing ever. What we do in many cases in a court of law is not considered legal. And it's rule number one that you learn when you're learning about basic law is a contract is void the moment it is protecting a crime, the moment that it is concealing a crime, or the moment that it enforces criminal activity. And unfortunately, legally speaking, what we do is considered not legal. So, contracts are not legally binding in a kinky situation ever. They legally cannot be. They, by definition, cannot be. So when you have people preaching contracts as if they are law, as if they are legally binding, you end up with people who are severely hurt because they don't know that they can back out. They don't know that they can walk away and not have there be consequences for it. Because the craziest thing that I've seen is somebody who had a this is something that I did. I'm not going to drop names because it's not my business to drop names. I had a friend of mine, online friend, who had a quote-unquote contract with somebody. My friend was a submissive with somebody, and they chose to leave their play partner, and their play partner legitimately tried to pull legal action against them. Tried to say, I can take you to court. And even I, at the time, who didn't have much knowledge as to, why contracts were bad at the time, I won't lie, I got sucked into that wormhole, at one point in my life. But even then, at the time, without knowing just how toxic contracts were, all I could think was, well, that's stupid, because that's not going to work. Because that's not how contracts work, ever. So we have to be more mindful about the language we use surrounding certain things, and is what it is. And I think that right there is the difference between saying contract and saying treaty, because it changes the definition of what you're doing. Don't get the concept that people are going with contracts. I understand the type of dynamic someone's trying to create. But that doesn't negate the toxicity of a contract in and of itself. Calling it a treaty and treating it as a treaty ensures that both parties are equally represented and cared for in that moment.
Yep. And that's what I thought about when I first woke up this morning. Alice, you had something to mention in this.
Well, I mean, to me, and this is the one thing too, and this is, I know we're saying it it makes sure that both parties negotiate. I think the real thing is, regardless of what you want to call it, at the end of the day, there is actually nothing that ensures your needs are met, you're safe, you're being taken care of, it's not being manipulative or abusive, except for you. Right? So regardless of what term you use, at the end of the day, the only person who can guarantee your safety is you. So make sure you're getting what you need met, and no one should ever fully dictate the terms of anything in BDSM. Everything is a conversation, and both sides need to agree. You can't move forward until there's the informed consent. But no one should be saying, we will do this, without first getting that negotiated informed consent that maybe that person has the right to do that.
It's like Sage said, no one's a plastic piece in your personal fantasy. It's the repetitive theme. All you drink, it's you didn't see this, I don't think, Sage. You hadn't come on yet. Someone made a comment that's like, oh, contracts are so sexy. This is someone who clearly gets off on the idea of BDSM. Me personally, I don't get turned on by a word contract. I get turned on by actually doing the kinky stuff. What the fuck? It's just your book talk idea of what kink is. Anyone who's really listening doesn't want a contract. Because what? Oh, excuse me. Hold on. Let me call my lawyer so we can amend the contract so we can add this new thing in. Come on now.
Jesus.
No one who's...
No.
At that point, you're like, part of the dynamic. Like, what are you talking about? Sorry.
They're the third. They're the third.
But what was just said, though, about how you are the only person who can actually protect yourself, that again falls back into what we were saying about critical thinking. The reality of the things that we do within this community is that there's risk to everything. We've talked about this before. Everything has a risk. Even just talking to someone new has a risk factor to it. We have to remind ourselves to stop, think, and wonder, do I feel represented? Do I feel listened to? Do I feel respected? Do I feel safe? And if you question for even a moment any of those things, if for even a second your answer might be no, it's time to reassess.
Absolutely. Completely agree. I can't believe 2 years later we're having these same conversations. That's what bothers me. Like, I feel like I'm failing.
I don't think you're failing. I think part of it is as you continue to grow, you find more people that are still learning it wrong. And the problem is there's no lack of people out there willing to teach it wrong, or willing to drink the Kool-Aid, or willing to think that book talk equals kink talk.
You know what scares me more than that? It has to be the creators who are definitely double downing on stupid things because they're trendy.
That's a huge factor too.
You know, like there were a couple people who I actually had respect for that have ruined it. I'll be honest, man. Like if you're gonna call yourself any type of kink educator and you're not gonna teach it in the way that protects as many human beings as possible, and instead you're chasing popularity because there's something new and trending. I remember the first time someone said fries to me, and I had to look it up. I didn't know what the fuck fries were. I looked it up, and I was like, that's really cute if you're vanilla. That would never work in kink. Same thing with
What are we talking about?
fries. Freely given, reversible something.
Freely given. It's supposed to be freely given, informed, reversible, enthusiastic, and specific.
But it doesn't work right.
It doesn't work for kink.
No, but even the term itself, it has a problem because fries is FIRES. So freely given is FG. So you start completely wrong. You go to informed.
I'm like, that was 2 words.
Yep. And
no, but even then, like even with vanilla relationships, it's cute. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. It really doesn't work. It was originally put out there by Planned Parenthood as an attempt to start consent education because we don't do good enough education, especially about human sexuality, at the appropriate age in this country. And so they were attempting to do something that would catch on with teenage kids.
I feel like
and
each other a lot more. But even then, like that just every time I hear an analogy for consent or like an acronym or anything of that matter, I feel like we're just creating more room for miscommunication. I'm a firm believer in affirmative consent only, but that's me. I need a yes. I need a plain and simple yes, I'm okay with this. And the only context in which I wouldn't look for that is in like regards to like certain kinks like CNC and things like that, where there's been a pre-discussion though, where there's been an affirmative yes.
To me, it's always going to be informed for me. because they have to know what they're stepping in kink. What were you saying, Alice?
Well, I was going through that it came from Planned Parenthood and it was really meant to help teenage kids. And it still doesn't really work there because of the whole enthusiastic thing. But as far as I'm sorry, I'm also always going to be informed, because even affirmative, it can be kind of hard for me to gather. The number one thing I need to know to make sure I got consent from someone is that they are informed of what they're consenting to. All the risks, all the possible good things and all the possible bad things that could come from it.
Absolutely. And the reality is, go ahead, Sage.
No, I was just agreeing.
Yeah, the ultimate end game of this is the fact that someone needs to know what they're getting into. Someone needs to be able to say, that's what I want. Yes, I heard all the risks. And it can't be coerced in any way. And, we can't make judgments of someone's mentality. Someone asked me recently in a comment, well, what if I thought that the person wasn't emotionally stable to make that? And I was like, here's the thing. I'm not a fucking doctor. I'm not a shrink. That's not my job. But if I really felt that way, I would just say no. I'd walk away. And if they were my partner, I'd be like, hey, what's up? You seem a little erratic. Because frenzy's a real thing in our lifestyle. And we do. And I've said this many a times, and it's not the popular answer, but it's the truthful answer. Sometimes you can play with your partner if they're in a frenzy, if you know how to calm down the frenzy and get them to play. Because sometimes frenzy's just getting really excited about something. It's like the kid on Christmas morning who can't sleep the night before. And sometimes it's problematic. And a lot of times, all you need to do is get the kid to take a nap or sit down with the submissive, have a meal before you play. And if at the end of it, they still want to play, there's nothing wrong with playing. And I think that's something we get wrong about frenzy. Like, oh, they have frenzy. Don't let them touch you. It's going to be contagious. We'll all have frenzy.
No, I am very with you on the fact that a lot of people either are unaware of frenzy or treat it like, they have frenzy, go nowhere near them. Yeah, and it's exactly like you said. A lot of times they just need somebody to take the time, have the patience to have the real in-depth conversation with them to kind of wear out the shiny excitement a little bit and make sure the yes is still there after the excitement's worn off.
I do have to get going, but I have to talk about this before I go. And I believe, Alice, was this your comment? That the basic comment was that someone has to repeat back to you the risks that you just told them, so you know they get it. I love that.
And I do that. I switch. So I do that whether I'm a top or a bottom. If I am playing with somebody, I want them to not just say, yes, I know the risks. No. Tell me what you think the risks are. Make sure we're on the same page.
And it's so true. I just had the renegotiation because there's more supposed evidence that anything to do with limiting air or blood flow to the brain, as some of the kids call it, choking, has been leading to issues and is dangerous. However, if you read the reports more thoroughly, this had to do with people who were crushing larynxes, that were impeding veins, that were causing contusions around the actual veins themselves, which of course would lead to other problems. If you know how to do it, which we will not be showing on this ever, then you're going to cause some shit. It's why we call this lifestyle dangerous. And the most dangerous thing is an uneducated person who goes around demanding you sign a contract when they're brand new to the scene or just getting a contract for someone new. Let me say this very clearly. If you're brand new to this lifestyle and someone's trying to get you to sign a contract, it's because no one who's been in this lifestyle longer than 5 minutes will sign that contract. Do not sign it. There's no advantage to signing a contract. And when you ask them why a contract, they're not going to have a good answer that tells you that they were planning to use it to manipulate you. Final words for you guys before I head out?
I'm good. Have a great night, everyone.
All right. Well, thank you all for being here. Thank you for being on stage. We're going to sign off like we do on Free Hugs and Spanks now. Remember that BDSM is not inherently sexual. It is mental. We negotiate it. We communicate about it. We find out about each other's play profiles, risk profiles, all the other profiles we need, including medical, and then getting together using diaper. Did I ask permission? Extensive representation. And once you get that thumbs up, you can ask for that informed consent to be given so you can talk about the new of the dynamic, the needs, expectations, and wants. I want to thank everyone for being part of this. Sage, thank you for being on. Alice, thank you for co-hosting. Cool as always. We'll be back in August with our next cool, hopefully a little more planning than this pop-up one, but I'll be honest, this has been one of my favorite cools to date. Stay cool and kinky, my friends. We'll see you at the next one. And until then, well, just wait. We'll be back. And good night to all of you amazing people here on YouTube who showed up tonight. Thank you so much. And the people watching after, leave your comments in the comment section. We will get back to you. And goodbye.